Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our first COAC meeting of 2022. My name is John L. Bell, and I will be serving as facilitator for this evening's meeting. Thank you so much for joining us, and to all of our viewers, thank you for joining us as well. Next slide, please. I'll go over just some technical instructions for Zoom participants review. Of course, COAC, this will not be new for you. But Zoom view available for presenters and COAC members. The general public will be viewing via YouTube live stream. Please raise your hand to speak. Please remain on mute until recognized. For COAC, please keep your video camera on to the degree that you're comfortable. Again, that helps for active participation. And please keep your video off for all others. Please keep your video off unless you're speaking. For any technical issues, you may contact 503-479-8674. Next slide, please. Just a review of our agenda. Again, welcome. We'll go over our sort of operating norms. We'll have a quick moment to discuss our December 16th meeting summary notes. We'll receive project updates from both Megan Channel, project director, as well as our wonderful partners from Tri-Excellence. We'll have an opportunity of really looking at the diversity plan, the final element of the diversity plan. And then we'll roll up our sleeves and get into COAC breakout sessions. We'll have report outs. We'll have an opportunity to receive public comments. Then we'll discuss next steps and conclusion. Next slide, please. Again, the general public attendees will be in listen mode. Today's meeting will be live streamed and recorded via YouTube and will be made public on ODOT's project website, https://i5rollsquarter.oregon.gov/. After the breakout group sessions, the general public is invited to rejoin the meeting for the report back summary, work section, and public comment. Next slide, please. Due to technical limitations of live streaming, members of the public are not able to listen to or view the breakout sessions in real time. However, at 5:20 or around there, COAC members will reconvene with a larger committee and report their summary from each breakout session. Recommendations from each breakout group will be presented and discussed publicly at that time. Recordings of the individual sessions will be posted online once available after the meeting. Next slide. Just a reminder of the ground rules. For us to let everyone participate by listening to and respecting diverse views and opinions. For us to listen with an open mind, to value learning from different input, stay open to new ways of doing things, treat others constructively and respectfully. Next slide. To please respect the role of the facilitator to guide the group process. Again, my role is to be a neutral facilitator and to help maintain the dialogue. For us to attack the problem and not each other. That disagreement, frustrations, and differences of opinion are acknowledged, explored, and addressed. Next slide. You'll recall that we had a meeting on December 16th. You should have received meeting notes and summaries. Just want to take a moment to see if any folks had any questions or concerns relative to those, the meeting summary notes. Okay, hearing or seeing none. Next slide, please. With that, Megan, I'll turn it over to you for a project update.
Thanks, Janelle, and good evening, COAC. Got a couple updates for you. I'll start with a follow-up to the email that I think all of you received this morning from me, just with an update on the environmental review process. So that is new information since my last update to you. So just following up on that, letting you know that as we've been progressing hybrid 3, we always knew that we had to do some sort of environmental reevaluation to incorporate the proposed hybrid 3 design into the full project. We're at a point now where we've worked with our federal partners and we understand what that process will entail. The Federal Highway Administration did rescind the previous, or I'd say the original environmental decision document. That's the finding of no significant impact, or FONSI. And what that means is that then we will now prepare an updated environmental assessment process for the project that incorporates the hybrid 3 highway cover design as proposed, and the outcome of the independent cover assessment process. And this is a good thing because it gives us that certainty on what our next steps are, but it also allows us to maintain our project schedule. So the project schedule that you'll be seeing from me in just a moment, and as we've articulated in the past, we're staying on track. The environmental process will carry through this calendar year with an anticipated new federal decision document at the end of this year in December. Simultaneously, we'll continue our work here as a COAC on finalizing and then implementing the diversity and subcontracting plan. We'll continue the design progression towards the early work packages, and we are still slated for construction starting next year. I'm so excited to be able to say that, by the way, starting construction next year in late 2023. So those are things that we are still committed towards, despite the change in the federal process. So again, happy to answer any questions about that, but just wanted to make sure that, again, as our COAC and community leaders, that you knew kind of the details of that process that we've got coming forward. Another piece that I'll note is on the finance plan. I think last time I was with you indicated that we were prepping the finance plan and would be submitting that to the Transportation Commission this month for a variety of reasons. 3 being we now have this new environmental process that we're going to learn more about the project design and how that fits into the project scope. Build Back Better, which is the federal reconciliation bill, is still in process, in discussion. Our fingers are crossed that will have some certainty in the near future, given that could be a viable funding source for the project. And then the commission's also having a number of conversations just around the infrastructure bill and how it's integrated into our Oregon policy that we want to make sure that we're in sync with. So for those reasons, we have delayed the delivery of the finance plan to the commission. So they did not receive that at their meeting this morning. But I did give an update just on project costs by way of funding that we have dedicated, that is dedicated for the project through House Bill 2017, and then our next steps. So it was more of just a general project update this morning for the Oregon Transportation Commission, in lieu of a formal delivery of the finance plan. So we're going to keep working on the finance plan, again, as we have more certainty around the federal programs and coming back at a future date. So we'll make sure that COAC, you guys are looped into that process. And then lastly, I know that there's been ongoing interest in, what's the status of partners, and particularly with the governor's letter of agreement. I'm happy to report this time that that letter of agreement is out for partner signature, and so should be finalized soon. And then this, with that agreement in place, we'll be starting to work with the city on the project specific and intergovernmental agreement, defining roles and responsibilities for seeking their re-engagement and seeking city council approval thereof. So with that, those are the 3 things that I wanted to make sure to touch on. They're big items, so happy to answer questions on those. Oh, and thank you for bringing the schedule up. Before I answer your questions, I'll just jump onto schedule by way of what we have looking ahead. I know I mentioned this a lot, but 2022, we have 2 big milestones for the project. That's going to be completion of the environmental review for the proposed hybrid 3, as I just mentioned, as well as design completion for early work package A. So that's the area on the north end of the project. And then close behind is completion for design of early work package B in early 2023. And then in mid 2023, we're reaching 30% design for the main project, the core area. All of this is leading towards construction starting late next year for those early work packages in late 2023. So thank you for keeping me honest on talking about the schedule. So now I'm happy to answer any questions from the group.
Great. Any questions, comments? And again, a reminder for COAC, if you could use the raised hand feature, that would be terrific. Questions, comments for Megan? Okay, seeing or hearing none. Dr. Holt for a HAB update.
Good afternoon, COAC. Good to see you, Dr. Holt, Tri-Excellence. I'll give you just a brief overview. The HAB continues to meet. We had a meeting on Tuesday.
Dr. Holt, sorry to interrupt, but it looks like.
Oh, I see James Posey. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, wait. Yeah.
Mr. Posey, please.
I really apologize, Megan. I got in on the last part. I guess I'm technologically challenged to be able to get in and get everything. This meeting is, I'm sure, recorded, so I missed the whole first part of your presentation. The things that I just want to clarify is that we do have an IGA. We are moving forward with the funding. All the funding is going to be in place, and it appears as if we're on track to start this project next year, based upon what the last part of what I heard you say. Is that still the case, or did I miss that?
Most of it. So James, we are on track for construction starting next year for the early work packages. So that's the segments that are to the north of the central area and to the south, so near 405 and then near 84. So that construction would start in 2023. By way of funding, we do not have all of the funding for the full project secured. To date, the funding that we have available is through House Bill 2017. We know, then this is more information than I provided in my update, so thanks for asking. We know that we have about $500 to $700 million dedicated for Rose Quarter through House Bill 2017. That range is based on the bonding program, kind of cash flow that's coming through the legislative direction. So the low end of the range at 500 million would be on a high interest rate at the time of bonding, and then the 700 million at a low interest rate at the time of bonding. We do know, however, that the project cost, inclusive of hybrid 3, depending on how many stories for the buildings is on top of the highway cover, ranges from about 1.18 to 1.25 billion for 1 to 3 story buildings on top of the cover, and 1.35 to 1.45 billion for 4 to 6 stories on top of the highway cover. So it's about a $200 million difference between those two scenarios. So we have a substantial funding gap. I want to be honest about that. We are, as I mentioned and presented at the Transportation Commission meeting this morning, we're going to continue leveraging our CMGC approach here, looking at different packaging or phasing opportunities that we can build by way of where we have that available funding, moving towards the full commitment for the entire project. So that's something that we're going to start to explore in more detail as we move ahead with the finance plan preparation, in addition to seeking other funding opportunities through federal discretionary grants, hopefully with the ongoing conversations around Build Back Better, but some additional funding could be identified for us to be seeking. But we do have a substantial funding gap that is part of our work program ahead. That said, we have funding to start construction in 2023 with those early work packages.
Well, Megan, I really appreciate that, but I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I'm just now getting this information. And for those of us who have been out here fighting for this project, it feels like we're not getting the information soon enough to be able to react to these deficits and so forth. And really, my pants need to be on fire as a member of this group if we're not able to close this gap and we're not able to move, and all this hard work appears to be stalled based upon the funding gaps, et cetera, et cetera. I say all that just to say, Megan, y'all got to do a better job of telling your advocates about what the gaps are, when we need to be, what we need to be doing about it on the streets here. And it just doesn't feel good to me to wait to this every COAC meeting before we really can get our act together and get out here and start pushing the agenda about what needs to happen on this project. I know you got a lot of stuff to do, but maybe I'm the only one out here that feels like the Lone Ranger, that I'm not being included, et cetera, et cetera. You tell me, Megan, do we need is there a communication problem with the very people who are out here trying to support you? You tell me. Explain that to me, please.
Yeah, James, you're right. I think we can do better on that. Because right now I think our primary communication, to your point, is through these COAC meetings. So I would love to hear from you, and we can have a chat offline about it too. Like how can I best connect with you to make sure that we're having those ongoing conversations between the meetings too? Because I want to make sure you're getting the information.
It's not just me. I don't think it's just me, Megan. I think other folk, we're not chopped liver. We're not chopped liver over here. We're trying to help move this project. So to the extent that you all can communicate what the issues are, where we need to go, what we need to do, who we need to push, what we need to do, then we can be supportive. But if we don't know, we can't do nothing. If you feel me, you understand what I'm talking about.
I totally get what you're saying, James. Yeah, well, I would be now later from you, from others, if there's specific avenues that you feel like we can better align with as well, just in broader community conversations, let us know. But I definitely want to dig into that as a follow-up, James.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Art?
Yeah, when one of the things I kind of struggle along with is also knowing what the gaps are and why the added cost, $200 million are we paying for the buildings going on top of the cap, or is it, I mean, there's a lot of pieces that are going on there. And I think that's kind of what James is also saying. We want to understand it way better and know what that commitment level is and be involved in understanding that, not wait till the COAC meetings in front of public forums so we can all be supporting each other.
Yeah.
There's money involved in this. We have to understand what our names are at the table as well when it comes to that. I sat in an AGC meeting yesterday and listened to them talk about it, and they barely know anything, but they have more knowledge about the constructability of the cap than some of us sitting in a COAC meeting. That's disturbing.
Yeah, got it. I hear you there, Art, and I will extend kind of the same approach. Let's stay connected, and this is to every COAC member. Let's figure out a way to stay connected between meetings. Janelle, I might even pull in your wisdom as well. Maybe we can reinstate some one-on-ones or smaller group conversations to make sure you're getting that information.
Great, thank you. Okay, Dr. Holt, we'll have you provide an update, and then Monica, we'll have you provide an update on performance measures.
Good evening again, Dr. Holt, Tri-Excellence. And I want to give you a brief report out on the Historic Albina Advisory Board. Erica Warren continues to be the lead facilitator of the process. She is in another meeting, and so I will give just an update for tonight's COAC meeting. Always good to see each of you and appreciate your work. On Tuesday, the Historic Albina Advisory Board met and covered what was covered in the last COAC meeting with the Oregon Department of Transportation's action on social equity. They heard what you heard, and it was a robust conversation, as you could anticipate. There was also a conversation around youth engagement opportunities. It's been a big concern for the Historic Albina Advisory Board that young people be engaged in the process. And so there are some strategies to do so, and that was talked about. And then lastly, covered performance measures and how to evaluate the effectiveness of the work. That was Tuesday's meeting. There continue to be monthly meetings, and anticipate at some point in the near future another joint meeting. That's my report.
Thank you, Dr. Holt. Any questions or comments for Dr. Holt? Okay, seeing or hearing none. Monica, would love to have you provide an update.
Yeah, thanks, Janelle, and good afternoon, COAC members. So I just want to give a brief update on the status of the development of our project performance measures. The project team has been working on developing draft performance measures over the last year based on the project values and outcomes. And like Dr. Holt mentioned, we've been discussing the performance measures with the Historic Albina Advisory Board over the last couple months. And we've compiled a Google document that's been shared with the HAB and will be sent out to you as COAC members as well to provide written feedback on the performance measures, as well as we've developed a glossary of terms that we've used throughout those measures that we want to get feedback on as well. And we plan to use the upcoming March COAC meeting to dive into the measures and get your feedback in detail. So this is more of just a preview and a status update today. Also, the project team has started to develop a framework for setting goals and how we're going to track progress on each of these measures. And conversations around these topics will also be included in future both HAB and COAC meetings this year. So I wanted to just give that brief status update, and back to you, Janelle.
Great. Thank you, Monica. Any questions or comments for Monica? Okay. If we can get our slides back up, please. I think we're going to be turning it over to Bill and Jeff for diversity plan, a continued conversation.
Sure. Thanks, Jonelle. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. Good to be here with you. Yep, this slide puts it in context. We started reviewing this diversity plan in March of last year, and we are hopeful that tonight will be the last meeting in that series where we present to you the second part of the community matrix, which is really addressing the comments that we've collected from you over the last 9 months. Next slide, please. So next slide. So again, you've seen this picture before. This is just a reminder of where we are in the process, starting with the first 3 sections, circles being review the plan, the 4th one, the green sheet analysis, and then right now incorporation of your input, second part of that process. And out of that, we're going to be asking you for recommendation that you will make, hopefully, to get ODOT to approve this plan ultimately. Next slide, please. So looking forward, again, our intention tonight is kind of to wrap things up and republish, take the community matrix, republish it with the updated diversity plan, and send you all a new hard copy of the diversity plan between now and February. That plan will have your comments both in it as incorporated, as well as included as an appendix and as a reminder of these meetings. The new version of the diversity plan will also have the new branding for the project and artwork and graphic design that goes with the project. And we intend to have that to you in the next 3 weeks. And off of that, in February, we're going to ask you to make a recommendation to move forward with this plan. And then we will likely take the meeting offline and have an appreciation celebration with you to just thank you for the time commitment and, more importantly, the valuable input that you've given us. In March, you heard Monica talk about the presentation she has for the performance measures. Then in April and May, we kind of get into the real work in my way of thinking. In April, we'd like to give you an update on the package A and B, the north and south end, the solicitations that we're planning, and the subcontracting specifics. And that will be right timely with the first 2 to 3 mini prime solicitations that we'll be putting on the streets. And the timing works out such that by May, we hope to be able to present you with 2 to 3 new members of the team in mini primes that would be selected by that time. Leading us to June, which I'm thinking is a good time to have a workforce development update, since that work is ongoing all the time. So that's kind of our picture of where we think we need to be going in the next 5 months. Next slide. So let's get down to business. I'm gonna give you just a reminder where we are with the community matrix. Next slide, please. Part 1, which we covered in November, covered a range of comments that all kind of fell within these 5 topics: diversity and subcontracting plan comments, transparency and accountability, wealth creation, cultural inclusion, preservation and consciousness, and then workforce and anti-harassment. The second part, next slide. Tonight we'll cover outreach and engagement, capacity building, technical assistance, community relations, and communications and messaging. And tonight I have with me Laura Ramirez, I've got Brianna DeCobb, myself, Terrence Hayes. The 4 of us will be presenting. And then also with us tonight is both Tayo Adishida, Matt O'Connell, Brad Sullivan, and Jeff Moreland, of course. So with that, if we're queued up on outreach and engagement, I'm going to ask Laura to take it away.
All righty. So let's start, as Bill mentioned, with outreach and engagement. So I'll address the first comment, including external outreach expectations in the procurement process. So our response is external outreach expectations were included in the project specifications prior to selection of the CMGC HSJV. The HSJV will go out into the community to fulfill future outreach expectations described in the diversity plan in subpart A, including community mixers, open houses, and engagement with the community groups. I think we might have skipped a slide. Is that right? Nope. Okay. Sorry, just checking. So our next comment, outreach and network with the community so that people are aware of the project and can do the work. So our response was that strategies for the subcontractor and workforce outreach are described throughout the diversity plan. The project team will also partner with the overall project engagement team and continue to work with the COAC moving forward. And this can be found in subparts A, B, and C. Next comment, ensure that the strategic and targeted outreach plan for the African American community is established. Our response is that the project team will engage in the Black community and will also engage in BIPOC communities. The diversity plan outlines this approach in detail, and this can be found in subparts A, B, and C. Next slide, please. So the following comments, ODOT and the team are not out in front of the negative narrative. It was suggested that the team consider releasing a positive aspect of this project, including comments, thoughts, and opinions about the project and what the project offers to the community. Our response was that a positive information campaign is now underway. A more thorough public information plan is currently being developed and will be presented soon. The next comment is that financial literacy support should be part of the DBE outreach and education around this project. Our response is that the technical assistant approach described in the diversity plan support subpart A includes educational support before and after procurement based on individual assessment of each interested firm. And this can be found in pages 19 through 21. Last comment on this slide is that in today's market, a lot of firms from COVID certified firms but mostly minority firms are not COVID certified. Describe how outreach will ensure minority contractors are engaged based on cultural competency. And our response was that the project team will be sponsoring workshops and work with community groups as a component of the outreach plan described in subpart A. We will encourage and provide COVID certification assistance for minority firms not currently certified. A cultural competency curriculum program is also included in the diversity plan, and this can be found in pages 11 through 13 and Appendix D. And the final comment is that outreach to DBE should be done as firms that may need that assistance now will be in a better position to participate in the process of, if informed in a timely manner. And our response is that information sharing is already underway. Our first public sharing event will be in early spring. Outreach for each package of work will commence approximately 6 months prior to procurement activities. And that can be found in pages 11 through 13. And I will pass it on to Brianna.
Thanks, Laura. So I'll be covering the comments that we received in relation to capacity building. So the first comment we received was that we should develop a resource list of all available minority business enterprises in the area and find out if their certifications are valid and have conversations with them to gauge interest, capacity, and availability. So the development of this resource list has been completed, and we will be updating it at each milestone as well as during solicitations. It's currently not in our diversity plan, but we can add it as a future appendix. The next comment we received was that capacity building must include cultural awareness and training with the goal of creating lasting, sustainable change across the industry as a whole. So our diversity plan includes a cultural awareness training plan, and you can find that in Appendix D. And our plan is to make this a requirement for all employees as well as subcontractors on our project. And we really believe the diversity plan as a whole addresses the intent of sustainable change across the industry. The next comment we received was to allow contractors flexibility. Public money has historically not served Black communities well, so we need to allow room for creativity. If you remember, this was one of the historical barriers that we first identified in our diversity plan, and it's we address it both in our subcontracting approach and the approach to workforce diversity. So you can find more information in our diversity plan on pages 7 through 11, page 26, and pages 30 through 36. The next comment we received was to build capacity through making sure there's a strong pipeline of firms. So our diversity plan describes the process whereby current projects are being utilized to develop a strong pipeline of firms. And we talk about this on pages 23 through 24 of our plan. The next comment is to build intentional relationships. We need to make sure people have the capacity to get involved. So our response is that the subcontracting portion of the diversity plan, which is in subpart A, describes the role of intentionality in subcontracting in order to build capacity. And we also include past examples to be replicated. The workforce components of the diversity plan, subparts B and C, provide a new and innovative way to be intentional about capacity building through the development of the workforce advocate, aka Terrence. And you can read more about this on pages 6 through 13, page 26, and pages 30 through 35. The next comment is that Raymore Construction should be given the latitude to utilize their existing relationships and continue to build new relationships. Raymore has been given the leadership role in the HSJV at the executive level, the project team level, and soon the public information and engagement level. These roles will be utilized to leverage existing relationships as well as continue to build new ones. And you can read more about that on pages 4 through 8 and page 23. The next comment is to designate a contact person who understands apprenticeship, especially the dispatch process and pipeline of workers. The contact person should serve as a compliance officer who will know what relevant information to look for and can monitor, assess compliance, evaluate participation, and enforce program regulations. So our diversity plan identifies 3 key people in subparts B and C that have integral roles in responding to these concerns. And these 3 people are Bill Bruce, Jennifer Erickson, and Terrence Hayes. Each individual brings unique qualifications designed to address the listed concerns in this comment. So you can read more about that on page 26, as well as reference our staffing plan in Appendix F. The next comment is that many firms lack understanding around project requirements and not knowing what options are available to meet them and need the assistance in understanding. This subject is addressed in our diversity plan under subpart A in the technical assistance portion. Potential subcontractors will receive support both pre and post bid through our personalized technical assistance approach. And you can find more information on that on pages 18 through 23 in our plan. The next comment we received was that a survey should be administered to understand contractors' barriers. If you remember, our project team has already conducted this survey of historical barriers, and we found 5 of them. And we outlined them in our diversity plan under subpart A. The diversity plan is designed to address these historical barriers, and you can find those listed on pages 6 and 7 of our plan. The next comment was whether or not a capacity study has been done and were there any intentional efforts to recruit firms. So our response is that a capacity study has been performed on the 20% design, and related scopes of work where capacity building opportunities exist have been identified and outlined through the use of our green sheet tool analysis. Our outreach and intentional efforts we plan to begin soon. And you can find more detailed information on our green sheet analysis in Appendix B. The last comment we received was to establish a clear pipeline for the pre-apprenticeship programs. So our diversity plan, subparts B and C, describe a clear approach to building a pipeline for workforce development that links outreach, recruitment, and pre-apprenticeship programs to apprenticeship opportunities on the project. An analysis has been completed to forecast the actual numbers of apprentices likely needed, and we did that through the green sheet tool as well. So you can read more about that on pages 26 through 29 and reference Appendix B. Next, I'll pass it on to Bill for technical assistance.
Thanks, Brianna. So the first of 3 or 4 slides on technical assistance. The first comment was provide technical assistance around financing to help them, DBEs, be successful and grow. Response is that the diversity plan subpart A, technical assistance approach, covers this topic in detail. And we have thus far organized our team plus potential third-party consultants. The training types include 1, project-based, 2, specialized third-party, and 3, use of the membership groups. All 3 types contain assistance related to financing depending on the need of the contractor. And that's found on pages 19 through 22 in subpart A. The second comment was provide technical assistance to small and beginning subcontractors so they can understand how to interpret a contract and what requirements apply, allowing them to put together successful bids in the future. The response we came up with is that the previous response applies, subpart A, namely. In addition, there's specific pre-proposal technical assistance proposed to help subcontractors interpret and understand contract requirements in order to put together responsive bids. And that's again described in pages 19 through 22. Next comment is that the owner's rep and the COAC to discuss mentor protege and technical assistance programs and workforce needs. Our response: the proposed mini prime program is a duplicate of the federally approved mentor protege program. Our technical assistance program is detailed in subpart A and includes processes to address workforce needs. Our approach to addressing workforce needs holistically is addressed in the diversity plan subparts B and C. So this was kind of a multi-pronged question and answer. So on pages 17 through 19 for the technical assistance portion, also 19 through 22, and then the workforce elements are found in subparts B and C. Next one is bonding and access to capital must be addressed, especially for women-owned and minority-owned businesses. How will those businesses be supported? Our response: the diversity plan's approach to technical assistance prior to bid time is to assess firms based on their interest and capacity, including bonding and access to capital. This assessment allows the project team to match firms with appropriate scopes and prepare for the follow-on post-bid assistance related to bonding and access to capital. This assistance often creates alternative approaches to bonding and access to capital. Educational opportunities will be provided in order to give firms the tools necessary to increase lines of credit, access to capital, and bonding. Next comment is that many small firms don't have an HR department. How can this challenge be mitigated? Response: the technical assistance approach described in the diversity plan, subpart A, includes support before and after procurement based on individual assessment of each interested firm, including staffing and workforce. And again, page 19 through 22 is where you'll find that information. The next comment is, how can we hold general contractors accountable? What can be done for the GCs to really build trust and understanding of how to work with subs? Our response: the project team includes individuals who have built trust within the DBE contracting community. These members have been placed in leadership roles to ensure that the GC will be accountable to this end. And you can find that on pages 3 through 25 and Appendix F. Next comment is expand the pre-proposal and estimating assistance for firms. Response is that the technical assistance approach described in subpart A includes support before and after procurement based again on the individual assessment of the firm. Pre-proposal and estimating assistance are normally recognized needs. And you can read about that on pages 19 through 22. The next comment is become a good example for the community and the nation. Our response is that we agree with this recommendation, and this is our goal and our intent. We want to be an example of change and growth in the construction industry related to diversity, equity, inclusion. More information regarding this comment is forthcoming in the public information plan that you've heard mentioned a few times throughout these answers. So again, that PI plan should be something that we present to you here in the near future. It's something that's been going on for a while. Some of you have seen bits and pieces, but it will really start taking off here soon this year. The next comment, the CMGC to make a habit of seeking Black, Indigenous, and people of color, BIPOC, in sourcing goods and services first. Response is our plan is to buy local from BIPOC firms. Although not specifically detailed in the diversity plan, more details are forthcoming as part of the public information plan that is forthcoming, the PI plan. But I can tell you we do that automatically. Even the diversity plan that we sent you a month and a half ago was printed by a local BIPOC firm. And that's just an example of how we're going to purchase here locally. Next comment is that the COAC noted the Certification Office for Business Inclusion and diversity database has historically not served the Black and brown communities. The response is that our approach will utilize COBID, and we understand that we must be intentional about serving Black and brown communities. We will provide technical assistance to BIPOC firms with the certification process as well. And you can find that on pages 11 through 22. And again, that's a standard operating procedure for us. Next one, or the last one on, sorry, that's the end of the technical assistance questions. And I'm going to hand this over to Terrence for communications and messaging.
How y'all doing? So the comment connected to communication and messaging is communication and messaging and the need to inform the community about the opportunities offered by the project and to mitigate confusion caused by a one-sided negative message. So our response to that is the project team has already begun implementation of a positive project information program, including testimonies, vignettes, social media, and marketing of construction opportunities. And that's something else that you'll see as you get more visual, as you can see the PI plan a little bit more.
I think we missed a slide on.
No, you took it, Bill. You took it.
Did I?
You was on the roll.
So with that, why don't we see if there are any questions before we head into the breakout groups? Questions, comments by COAC before we jump into the breakout? Art?
Yeah, on the capacity building, I still feel like we're missing something. That's under the technical section. We have to also have an idea what is needed for a business, not just by evaluating them early and after the fact. What are we going to do and how are we going to build capacity for these folks? You know, we can say that we're going to do it for the Rose Quarter, but it's going to follow, that project will end at some point. And what is the futuristic view of how that's going to end up staying true? Because there's going to be businesses like Raymore that are going to graduate out of the COVID section, and then they're not going to have access to those jobs, and we're going to be dependent on the COVID solutions, and they're going to end up in the same scenario like I have when they reach that point if they haven't already been there. So I want to make it very clear that when we talk about building capacity is that we have a real vision and a futuristic idea about what we're going to do with certain folks or certain contractors that have the capacity at a point where they can continue training and building up the communities and supporting themselves with newer businesses that they know how to help. I think capacity needs to be identified again.
Jeff or Bill, would you like to respond?
I agree.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bill. Go ahead, Bill.
No, I mean, I fully agree. I mean, taking a futuristic view and making sure that we're looking at new and innovative ways, new types of work. I mean, we basically have based our plan on the construction work that we're normally engaged with and knowing where there are gaps in the scopes of work, and designing capacity building around voids in scopes of work. But when I hear Art talk in that manner, somehow I think there's more to it. And so I think there could be more thought put into what capacity really building means if you take a futuristic view of it.
I think that to chime in, Art, but it's only so much though on this project that we can do, and your concerns are well suited because what happens when this project is over and we've done these commitments. But I think that I look at this thing as a kind of a complete network. There's other major projects coming online that should maybe come online that we can take what we're doing here and do something similar, right? So, IVR is a class case that, it's going to be a much bigger project that if we can actually have the successes here in terms of starting to really build that capacity, we'll be able to take that to the next job. And I think that if we can get a consistent run of, 5 years, I agree, is not enough to really get this built out enough. We've been doing it Raymore one-off for 20 years, helping to build this capacity. But if you could have it on a large scale, like Rose Quarter for 5 years, and then take it to somewhere like an IVR, we have a real chance of changing the narrative the way you're talking about, Art. But I hear it. It's a much bigger thing than just this project. And I get why you're saying it that way. I appreciate it.
Great. Art, we're going to respond real quickly.
Yeah, I just think that it's important. A lot of us put a lot of energy in and really understand that we've put our homes, our lives, our bank accounts, even our trust and everything into building our businesses the way that they go. And it can be hinged on a decision. And it really is extremely impacting. And I want everybody to understand that capacity is not just something we talk about. It is not just this job. It is something that has to be a continuing activity that goes on and on and on. And there has to be a success that goes on, milestones writ. We have to do everything we can to start balancing the ship. And it starts with understanding what capacity with futuristic vision is and start eliminating all the barriers that get put out in front of us regularly.
Great. Thank you for that. Amber, could you review a breakout session instructions?
Sure. For those, so essentially we're going to go into 2 breakout groups. What we want to do is have each person in the breakout identify one person to report out and take notes. Essentially what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about whether or not you feel like we have recapped all of the information in the community matrix.
Great. Any questions before we get out into the breakouts? And we'll be back. What time will we be back for everyone's reminder?
I guess we're going to have to adjust the time because it's 30 minutes from now. I guess about, what is it? 5:30, you're 5:30-ish.
Okay.
That's fine.
Let's do 5:25.
Okay.
To be on the safe side.
Okay. Sound good. Gotcha.
Great. We'll see everyone back here in a few moments. Natalie, before we get started, could you tell me if we have any folks in the queue for public comment?
Not at this time. We have no one in the waiting room for that.
Okay, awesome, thank you. Okay, we'll wait just a few more moments until our colleagues are back here.
Looks like the other group had more fun than we did.
They were all super happy when I was in there. Also thankful.
Great, welcome back, everyone. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started with public comment, or not public comment, group report outs. Bill, why don't we start with your group? Who was the moderator for your group?
Oh, Shelley was, yeah, go ahead.
The note
Shelley.
taker and the speaker.
All right, Shelley, it's all yours.
Okay, we had about, we covered a lot in the half an hour that we had. One of the things that we covered is about where the workforce is coming from for this project, how and where are workers coming from, and will they be diverse beyond Raymore, and that folks are waiting to see results, and that there are certain entities that are barriers and challenges to this work. Next one was we have diverse voices that support this project that need to combat the loud voices that we hear that are not for the project, that don't tend to be diverse. Also, we talked about the diversity plan and how it's addressed so many aspects. It's both qualitative and quantitative and does so many things. And our committee member said, you know, why are we spending so much time on this? We've already got the right team. We've got the right ingredients. Now it's about get moving and get moving it forward. This is ODOT's first diversity plan, and ODOT, the first one ODOT's ever done. And so it's new to ODOT, but people are anxious to move that work into action. There was support for a prison transition to apprenticeship program and other programs. These are pieces that folks want to see happen. There was some discussion following up on the concern about capacity. You can't prescribe success and get, because you have oftentimes folks that get in the way of your success from a minority business perspective. And we talked about actually adding a discussion at the next COAC meeting specific to capacity. And also related to capacity, there were examples of projects that have started and stopped, but it's the gap in between that causes the problems, and that we should be focusing on a continuous, I think it was, capacity should be liquid and never stop. And then there was discussion about the example of bonding being a barrier, and that some bonding agencies refusing to support minority businesses, and to perpetuate systemic racism built into the system that preclude minority businesses to grow. And that these issues need to be a collaborative of city, county, and congressional to be unified on capacity and how to address this, so that we're creating that pipeline that we talk about. And finally, we need workforce now. Where is ODOT on this now? we could get, if we could get off the union versus non-union issues, we would be able to do this. We should not wait for process meetings. There are some stakeholders that are holding us back, and we need to examine that. That's it.
Excellent report out. Questions or comments for this group?
And if I missed anything, group, feel free to chime in.
Yeah.
She nailed it. She nailed it.
Yeah, she nailed it. I just want to say one thing here real quickly, and that had to do, if you really want to know about capacity building, go ask Jesse Rodriguez, R&R Construction. We fought tooth and nail to get over the barrier of bonding for Jesse with the city of Portland, and he's out on Lombard right now.
Yeah, he is
doing a huge amount of work. And it all stems back to Bill Bruce and his work with TriMed and with Stacy and Whitbeck. Jesse, I mean, Bill, I don't have to speak for that. You know the capacity building that you infused in Jesse Rodriguez, one of the premier contractors right now. If you want to talk about capacity building, Jesse went from nothing to big time based upon the work that Bill and them did. I'm gonna shut up because I can see this happening day to day. That's why I'm not afraid about just the diversity plan or any of the stuff we've done. I've seen it happen in real life.
Great. So I will do my best to report out from our group. We spent a fair amount of time talking about just our group's satisfaction with how the team, in particular the CMGC, has responded to and addressed questions that COAC has raised. There were comments that, it's clear that you can tell a lot of work has been put into the responses, and it doesn't follow what has sort of occurred in this region as what's typical for a lot of these committees where folks might bring up issues and they're never resolved. So very appreciative that the team has been responsive to the requests of COAC. Comments that believe that we are in a good place and that we need to keep building the momentum, and that we also need to see this project relative to other projects that's occurring in the region, whether it's 205 or IBR, that we really need to be thinking about capacity from the perspective of a continuum. So with that, let me open it up to my group, just in case I missed anything. Anything our group would like to add?
The only thing I would say, quoting Dr. Holt, let's go.
Indeed. Love those photos behind you as well. The paintings, really great. Other thoughts from our group?
I think the trauma conversation came out in your group as well, that when we're dealing with a population that has been marginalized and discriminated against and oppressed, it's going to be we have to be prepared to deal with the trauma to actually overcome in this process, right? And I think that this team is the right team to actually bring that to fruition. So that was a good conversation that we had. Dr. Holt really hit it home about that. And so I just think that we just need to, Dr. Holt, can you give that example that you use so everybody's aware of what we're going to be dealing with and why this is that important?
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm going to leave the camera off. I'm having spotty internet for whatever reason. Can everybody hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. The example I gave to illustrate the work being different than any other project per se from a governmental standpoint, the traditional approach of government is to be task driven. In this dynamic, we have a people who have been traumatized by all the things we know and have talked about. So I tried to illustrate it by if you had a child who had grown up in an abusive scenario, abusive situation with their parents, and now they're in foster care. That child is going to continue to act and behave in the manner that they've been accustomed to, but the foster parent cannot respond or act the way that the abusive parents have acted. And therefore, it is on the parent's responsibility to learn how to interact and how to deal with the trauma impacted child. And so we're talking about people who've been marginalized, displaced, oppressed economically, et cetera, it is the responsibility of the agency and those who represent the agency to be informed and prepared to address things responsibly. And that this is trust building and relationship establishment, and therefore hyper communication, which is already mentioned by Mr. Posey, consistent communication, bringing in third-party validators, building the right relationships and networks for this to be a successful process is going to be required. So those are the things we talked about as relates to trauma-informed kind of action.
Great, thank you for that, Dr. Ho. And I see James Posey has a question or a comment.
Yeah, I just want to say, you know, Megan, where are you still here, Megan? I hope.
I'm still here.
And what I consider a beautiful expression of what ODOT has not been willing to admit. And that she says that we love bureaucracy. She said that. I mean, she said we love bureaucracy. I want to put that bureaucracy on the table and examine it because it's killing us. It's killing us. They do things for the sake of doing things. It's crazy. We've seen this diversity plan. We know what it looks like. I've challenged all of you to come up with something better or even come close to it. But yet we're still fumbling around, examining it, mushing it around. Megan, now this is where this becomes crucial. Cognitively, Megan knows that this bureaucracy is making us stumble around. She has the ability to move this diversity plan forward without a lot of craziness. We can approve it, so on, etc. But the ability to operationalize this diversity plan is with her and ODOT right now. Let's stop playing, folks. Since we know bureaucracy is a problem, let's get it out of the way and move forward.
James, that's a great segue to our next topic. But before we get to that, and we will have an opportunity of discussing next steps relative to the diversity plan, I want to just check, do we have any public comment? Want to make sure we allow the public to weigh in.
At the moment, we do not.
Okay.
Any public comment? Do you want to go over the public comment rules or?
Yeah, let's go ahead just to ensure that we've afforded those who may be watching an opportunity.
Oops, sorry. Okay. Okay. Sorry. So for those who are watching virtually from YouTube, you are allowed to call in at this moment to make a verbal comment by dialing 971-247-1195, entering meeting ID 880-3045-7705, using passcode 518722. If you do not have your comments gathered at this moment, you may submit it via voicemail at 503-470-3127, or written to the email, the project email at rosequarter@odot.oregon.gov, or via the project website, i5rosequarter.oregon.gov. Please put in the subject line COAC public comment. We did receive a public comment early on by the deadline today. It was circulated to COAC members, so they had a moment to review it prior to the meeting. So
great. Thank you, and please just let us know if we get any folks in.
Will do.
Jeff, I would like to invite you to offer last comments as we start to close, and then I'll share sort of next steps in terms of what occurs at our next meeting, as well as the diversity plan. So Jeff.
Thanks, John L. So on our breakout session, I've been involved in this kind of work and construction for over 25 years. Let me start by saying I could not have a better partner than the Hamilton Stunt team. In ODOT, I worked with ODOT off and on for 20 years, but this is not your father's ODOT that we're working with. I feel we have spent the last year working closely with each other. I don't feel that this is the the JV's diversity plan. I feel this is our diversity plan. We have all worked together collectively, including some of the HABs times we presented in front of the HAB members to actually get to this point. We're going to be calling you guys here in the next week to recommend getting this ODOT approved this plan from a COAC perspective. But I think this has been our plan. I think we've all been lockstep the whole time with it. All the consulting teams, ODOT, the owner's rep team, you know, we're here. It's time. Let's not continue to drag this out. Let's get this thing approved and let's get, you know, as Dr. Holt said, let's go. We got a lot of work to do. Let's go. That's all I got.
Great. Well, thank you for that, Jeff. And thanks to the whole COAC for really rolling up your sleeves over the past year, really developing a pretty solid and phenomenal diversity plan. You have made a number of additional comments, and in respect of those comments, we want to give the CMGC an opportunity of updating the plan. You will receive a final plan via email or mail, I can't recall, one way or another, in short order before our next meeting in February. At our February meeting, the first part of that meeting, we will be seeking from you whether or not you as COAC feel comfortable with offering your recommendation to ODOT that the diversity plan is approved and adopted. And so we'll kind of go around the virtual table and seek your concurrence as to whether or not you feel as if you're ready to recommend that the diversity plan be adopted and approved by ODOT. So that's what's going to happen. The first part of the meeting, the second part of the meeting, James Posey, just a second, please. The second part of the meeting will be an opportunity of really acknowledging all the work that you all have put into the diversity plan. So we'll have a kind of a recap and an opportunity of just celebrating that significant accomplishment. So with that, I will open it up for any questions or comments. But before I do that, Megan or Monica, did I miss anything relative to the sequencing?
No, you've got it covered, Janelle. Thank you.
Okay, great. James?
Well, you know, I'm a little befuddled about the process here because you laid out a process. We've been talking, Jeff just said, we've been talking a year and a half. We've all kind of, you know, rolled over this diversity plan. And I'm a little concerned that we got to wait another, COAC meeting before we make approval of this plan. Or, you know, should I recommend that we do a provisional acceptance of this plan? I'm just like, why are we having this process go through?
Is there a motion? Is there a motion?
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
Let.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, you know, I just tried to articulate the bureaucracy piece,
yeah.
Megan, and this ain't pretty for us to be sitting in these meetings, you know, every month and going through all this and that. Why don't we just get to it? Let's go.
So let me just interject. I mean, if it's the will of COAC, and I would just ask you to indicate with your hand signals if you're okay with advancing the plan and asking for ODOT to approve it, then yes, we can take that now. Be mindful that there were additional comments made that perhaps have made it into the plan. And Carolyn, I don't know if you want to weigh in, or Jeff, you want to weigh in just to note anything that might be helpful relative to changes that COAC may not be aware of before they make this decision.
I guess, let me turn my camera on, sorry. This is Carolyn Henniges. From my perspective, all we did was clarify what we've already heard here as presentations from the JV to the COAC. So I feel like the COAC has a really good handle on what their approach is. You know, I don't think there's any sweeping changes that you are expecting between the version you've seen and this upcoming version. From my perspective, I don't know, Monica, you and I have been the ones that have kind of poured through everything. Do you concur?
Yeah, I would concur. We made some clarifications for clarity in the most recent version. So no major changes.
Yeah.
So my thing is Jeff, Bill, and all the rest of them got many things to do to move on with. I don't want to see them spending a lot more energy on this diversity plan when we've already beat it to death. I'm just going to say that.
James, your point has been made. Let
you.
other folks weigh in here. Art?
Yeah, I'm good with moving forward as well. The one thing I just want to make sure is that some of the topics that were brought up in today's session should be added into it, and I'm willing to move forward. I'm with James Posey.
Okay, so why don't by a sign of hands for members of COAC who feel comfortable with advancing the plan, if you could just do that now, and let's just see where we are. James, I'm assuming you're a yes. Okay. See, Katrina would like to read the whole thing before voting. Other perspectives? Are there other COAC members who have not weighed in that I'm not seeing at this juncture? Katrina, would you like to offer comments?
Yes, I'm not 100% for sure that there are enough COAC members here to vote, for one. And while I think it will pass, it just feels like we've got a duty to make sure that we understand everything that's in there. And so if there's clarifications that were made tonight, I feel like that should just be pen to paper before we vote.
Okay, so why don't I, as facilitator, try to find a happy medium. Let's shoot to get approval prior to our next COAC meeting via email, and allow other members of COAC to offer their perspective. Let's let folks who want to see the full document have that opportunity. But it's clear that we have concurrence here, and so my hunches won't take too long. Okay, thank you all for that. Really appreciate that. Do we have any public comment?
Not at the moment. No public comment.
So with that, Megan, I want to offer any closing remarks you might have, and then we will convene earlier.
I will leave with a two-word closing. Let's go. But thank you. Thank you for the work tonight. I too am really excited to wrap up the planning part of the diversity and subcontracting plan and move into action. So let's go do it. And let's go celebrate this as well coming up. So you'll be getting some further notification about a celebration in appreciation of all of the hard work, more hard work than you probably thought you were putting in, but all of the hard work to get us to where we are today.
Great. Well, thank you all for a wonderful meeting. Look for an email. We will get this done in short order. So really appreciate your time and efforts, and have a great evening.